Hello, everyone, and welcome to our new episode. Today, we are talking about unwiring hardwired monogamy. It's going to be a very interesting one, so stick around to hear more.
I think it's a good place to start would be to kind of define what we mean by hardwired monogamy, and important to make the distinction between biological hardwiring and societal hardwiring, because I think all of us in Western culture are hardwired as monogamous, at least for the most part. Like our culture is very forward with the concept that everybody should be partnered with only one person, at least one person at a time. And then there's the biological hardwiring where some people are just wired for that not to be the natural inclination. So I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah. So actually, I've been thinking about that, the biological hardwiring to be monogamous. And I think a lot of it's not a biology in itself as much as it's easier to be monogamous and in every way. But even if you take away the society's pressures to be monogamous, if you think about the amount of change and adaptation that we have to go through, just us, the three of us in our relationship, you have to admit that being monogamous, it's much, much easier. So a lot of it, I think it's a choice more than the biology of it.
I disagree. It is not easier to be monogamous. That's just part of the brainwashing.
Right.
You think about, any other structure all throughout history. Monogamy is still relatively a new concept. People are just so used to it. They see it on Disney films and everything else. We're just brainwashed from birth that monogamy is the only way. And people tend to think like it's always been that way, but it's not true. If you're going to build a structure of people that are all supporting each other, that's easier. I mean, if we go back in history, powerful men had lots of wives and they were building cities. And
are you referring to easier from the perspective of what's easier to have a support system or not, or easier for you in your life? Because if you're monogamous, I think that you have to work less. It's expected that you work less in your relationship.
I think that might be what people think, but
yes, that's what they think, and that's what I meant.
But yeah, you're either good at we talked about this before. Whether you're monogamous or polyamorous or whatever, it all comes back to relationships. You're either good at relationships or you suck at relationships.
Right. But how many
you're good at relationships, you have multiple partners, you're going to be good with all those partners. If you suck at relationships, that's just going to multiply.
But how many monogamous relationships that are good and people are not just complacent?
None. People suck at relationships.
That's what I mean. When I say it's easier, they think it's easier because you don't have to work hard.
People want to die on this hill of monogamy.
Yes.
Like it's the only way. Why the divorce rate is skyrocketing. And even the people that would like to die on this hill have miserable relationships.
Exactly.
And even if it's not miserable, what they have is not even a relationship. It's like, we had sex, once a month on that Saturday.
But that's why it's easier, because you don't have to work. They don't think they have to do any work.
Is it really easier though? Like it's easier.
No, in the grand scheme of things, it's not. It's horrible. You're shooting yourself in the
I think it's easy with lazy.
Yeah. And I think it's only easier from what you're seeing because it is what's culturally accepted.
Right. Yeah, so you don't have to fight any windmills or weird opinions that are against you. You just go with the flow. It's easy.
From that outlook, yes.
Yeah, that's
it's
what
easier. Okay, it's easier. You don't have to deal with any societal type issues. That's true. But behind closed doors inside the home, it's not any harder to be in a polyamorous relationship or throuple or any other structure than it is to be a monogamous one. You could... sometimes in some aspects, our relationship is easier because we always have a third person to go to.
No, of course.
For something. But whereas in a monogamous, if you're having a fight with your partner, it's just you're just at war with that other person.
Right.
There's no.
But it's okay. So what I really meant is that it's easier to be more complacent within a monogamous relationship than it is in a polyamorous relationship.
That's true.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to be complacent. When you add even just one additional partner, then it becomes nearly impossible to be complacent in that relationship.
So we were talking about it in our previous episode, where certain things may go within a couple, and then you bring a third person, and all of a sudden they call you out on those things, and you have to change. You have to become better.
Correct.
Monogamy for me has always been a very sensitive subject because I believe I was born non-monogamous, but I didn't know that until I was about 30 years old, I would think. And the entire time from my very, very first boyfriend till that age, I thought there was something really wrong with me. And keep in mind, I was married too, monogamously married. And I couldn't understand why I have such an inability to hold on to a relationship and why everything in my body was telling me that something just wasn't right. And again, I thought it was something wrong with me until one day I read a book and everything changed. Like I heard the term of non-monogamy being explained to me. And I also, I heard it being not demonized, being non-monogamous. And I heard that other people do it. And other people experience different relationship structures than the ideal that I was raised with. And all of a sudden, my entire life just changed. And it was amazing. It was like the beginning of the rest of my life, so to speak. And I think I'm not the only one that feels that. And I know that now, where I was raised, I didn't have access to all this information, but now there's a lot of information for that. And I hope our podcast is that for other people that are questioning, like maybe young people that are like thinking, I'm not wired monogamously. I'm not wired to have a relationship like everybody else is. And who am I? And where do I fit in society? Yes.
I mean, that was our sole reason for even doing this podcast is because we've gone through all this, since around.
Right. Alone.
Alone for about 3 years and been able to find almost zero resources.
Right.
There's hardly anything out there. There's stuff for polyamory a little bit, but it's always about like just dating type stuff. But it's like, there's nothing about people living together.
Right.
Or a throuple. It's so scarce. It's like, but we meet people that are trying to do it, and they have so many questions,
right?
And they don't know who to ask, and everybody's closeted about it. Nobody wants to come out and talk about it. So that's where we finally it's like it was time to do something.
Yeah, and that happens. You're questioning. You're questioning if there's anything wrong with you. If nobody else comes up and says, "Yes, I'm the same way," so it's okay to be be way.
Yeah. We're probably not the best example for people, but we're all you got. So you just have to follow along.
Or maybe not just not the best, but maybe other people don't want this, but they know that what society is setting forth as what should be most aspired to is not working for them.
Yeah, they don't need to follow our blueprint. Yeah, just find what works for you.
Yeah, so they're sitting there thinking like, okay, well, something must be wrong with me because I've tried this,
right,
and that's not working. So
why don't I fit in?
Yeah.
What's going on? Yeah,
and it's you have to be blind to look around and realize monogamy is not the answer. Don't stop trying to die on that hill and trying to make it work for you because it's not working for anybody.
Very few.
Yeah, very few. It's and the ones that are holding on to it, it's like it's not even working.
Right. I wouldn't necessarily blame monogamy in itself, but the way we choose to do relationship, the way we choose to do monogamy, like the way we think the happily ever after story where and they live happily ever after, and nobody pays attention to what happens after.
Yeah, you notice that on every Disney movie. Yes. Once they find the prince, that's the end of the film. Let's see the sequels to
those. Our lives are the same, right? we work super, super hard to get married with the one, the guy or the girl that's going to be the dream come true. But then what do? What happens afterwards?
Yeah.
Because like something bad happens afterwards because people get divorced a lot.
The honeymoon period wears off and
but we don't know how to do relationships. That's not a course they teach in high school.
No, they should.
They teach us algebra because we're going to use that later on in life. But don't teach us how to write a check or balance our checking account or how to do relationships or things that we actually need.
Yeah. How to find purpose in life. Yes. I think out of all of us, Shar has the most intriguing story about monogamy and non-monogamy because so what is the definition of monogamy that I know of is somebody who is romantically and probably sexually involved with one person. And even though a lot of us think we're monogamous, very few actually are monogamous, right? But I think Shar has been monogamous for a very, very long time by definition, and she knows what it means to be monogamous.
Shar's got to be like one of like less than 1% of the population that is actually monogamous.
Was monogamous.
Or was, but yeah, was monogamous, right? Because nobody's truly, I mean, to be monogamous, it means you mated for life with one person. Everybody confuses that.
Yeah.
Now. They all say they're monogamous.
It's not
but
for
they're
life, but it's being in a relationship with only one person. And people think monogamy means being with one person at a time.
At a time.
But it actually means
serial monogamy.
It's actually being with one person.
So all you serial monogamous out there, get off your high horse because you're not really a monogamous.
Yes. So Shar has been monogamous for a very, very long time. So she knows everything about monogamy. Tell us.
I think it's important to note too that I was monogamous in the sense that I was in a monogamous relationship. Josh was my first and only for 14 years or something. And I was very satisfied and happy in our romantic relationship, our sexual relationship. I had curiosities later that I wanted to explore, but it didn't feel like I was missing something.
Right.
So in that sense, I was truly satisfied with monogamy. And then later on, when we found out about polyamory and we realized that Josh was wired, or just acknowledged that Josh was wired non-monogamous, like, from like a biological sense. That was kind of paradigm shifting for me, realizing that there are just some people that, yes, he did monogamy. He was monogamous with me for all those years, but that doesn't mean that he didn't have that natural desire for additional partnerships. And I think men and women all over the place have those desires that maybe they're not acting on, or perhaps they are, but unethically.
And there's things that is like the fantasies, the sexual fantasies. There's fantasies you would carry on and do them in real life, and fantasies you never want to. And this could be the same thing. Like, maybe you have curiosities. That doesn't mean you actually want to change anything about the relationship that you have. Right.
But then my journey continued when I realized later that, probably solely based on purity culture, the purity culture I was raised in, much of my sexuality had been completely suppressed. It was it was almost like it was non-existent.
Do you think that has something to do with you accepting monogamy easier?
Absolutely. Yeah. And in my mind, that was the only acceptable option. I am compliant by nature, I guess, compliant by natural orientation, if you will. And then later on, as I started allowing myself to consider the possibility that, okay, maybe this isn't how everybody naturally is, and I realized that there were parts of myself that were shut down, I just lost my train of thought.
So this actually brings a very interesting question. Like, now that you're saying this, so do you think you were monogamous from a societal perspective or from a biological perspective? I mean, clearly now you're not monogamous anymore, and it wasn't something that, so it is aligned with your biology not to be monogamous. But all these years while you were happy within monogamy, it wasn't really who you really were. It was society and upbringing that put that on you.
100%. Yes, it absolutely was cultural, societal wiring that made me think monogamy was the only path for me and accept that. But at the same time, I think because I was so content and fulfilled in a monogamous relationship, I think I've fallen in the category of ambiamorous, which I touched on before, where I can be happy in either style of relationship. I can be happy monogamous, or I can be happy with more than one partner. It really, to me, is about what that connection that I have with the partners, the intimacy.
Just like my pansexuality. A lot of people ask me, what does that mean? It's the same. It's the energy. It's like I could do anything.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. That's something very interesting because I don't think I thought about that when it comes to you. And I think you were very lucky to be in a relationship with a man like Josh that's like very... he is capable of being a very fulfilling partner.
Yes.
And not everybody has that. And that's when you get to a point where you start questioning, right? And I didn't have that. I didn't have that type of relationship. And not only that, but also it just never fit in my mind. And then I ended up in the situation where I kept thinking there's something wrong with me. Mm-hmm. And my solution was just move from partner to partner because I thought that was the problem. Until I realized that was not the problem. It was me.
It makes me think about there's all these people out there that are trying to be monogamous, with their partner. But they're up in their head. The fantasies aren't there. Or there are non-monogamous fantasies. Mm-hmm. Like the number one fantasy of all time. What is it?
Three-way.
It comes up all the time. We were at that show in Vegas. So they're asking everybody's threesome, everybody else. Yeah, it's like, but they would never act on it. And it's like out of this sense of, loyalty to the being a monogamist or their discipline, to not, but if it's up here in their head, does that make you?
But don't you think a lot of people would act on it if their partner would be supportive?
Yeah.
And that would take away the guilt and shame of it.
You two did that. Yeah. Your partner was supportive. You guys explored in a guilt-free environment.
I guess the question is, are you really monogamous if your fantasies are not?
No, you're not.
Right.
Well, so it's like almost nobody really is monogamous. No, because just like all animals in the animal kingdom, you also are not monogamous.
That's the thing I think a lot of people don't understand or don't recognize is like if you have those fantasies and would act on it if you had a supportive partner, you're non-monogamous. Whether you like that whether you want to accept that about yourself or not, you have wiring.
Yes. Or if you have the fantasies and you consider them childish and not something a good man or a good woman would do, that doesn't make you non-monogamous.
Or if you slept with at least one person before your spouse.
Yes. Yeah.
By the Webster's definition.
Yes.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, what I believe, and I'm not the only person, is like human beings are not wired to be monogamous. I think monogamy is a very new concept, like in the last, 2,000 years?
I think you can be monogamous by necessity.
Right.
Back in like the pioneer days of America or something like we've had.
Well, I've seen some stuff lately. Stuff's been popping up. I saw something on Joe Rogan, and then later on, Jordan Peterson did something too. And their whole excuse why everybody needs to be monogamous is that there needs to be one for one.
Mm-hmm, socialism.
And that's relationship socialism.
Yes.
And they don't ever say that. I'm coining that term, relationship socialism, because that's what's happening. Because they're afraid that if that man didn't get a woman, that he might become violent and it could start wars and stuff.
Yeah, that's why we have no violent men.
Ladies, listen up. You have to settle for a lesser man. Then share a really good one, because otherwise society will fall apart. The burden is on you. It's your responsibility
to take that
take one for the team and save society.
Oh, yes.
But I think because of that structure, we're also in this cycle of like women aren't being all that they could be either. Men aren't being all that they could be, because there's going to be some women out there that will settle for him because that's the only acceptable thing. So
why would a woman want to be better for the men that are available for them? No, you don't have to be, right?
Well, and why would a man want to be better when he knows he doesn't have to be better to get, he'll get somebody.
That's why I was talking about why monogamy is easier, because there's no competition. You get married, you get the girl, you get the guy, and you stop working out, and you stop trying hard, and you stop trying to impress them, and there it is. It's easy.
Yeah. Capitalism worked great for America. It can work great for our system of relationships. Let's not become socialist with relationships.
I think we've all heard that saying, Look at that couple. Well, there's somebody for everybody.
What do you say? Every
weed has its shadow.
Yeah.
Here we are. We're starting with the Romanian saying.
Yes, that's your first one. Tune in next week. We'll get into goats.
And villages.
Goats or grapes or villages.
And neighbors.
Yes.
I have a question for you, Josh. Since you are wired to be non-monogamous, as I am, how was life for you being married monogamously for so long?
What was it like?
Yes.
It was very frustrating because I always felt like I was missing something. But
did you actually sit around and think what it was?
I couldn't figure out
what is it?
No, I couldn't put my finger on what it was. Like I think I've covered in the past. Like I don't know how deep I went.
Yeah, but we never got into the details of it.
Okay, well I'll backtrack a little bit. But like when I was young, I grew up in very conservative, Southern Baptist style church where we were in church every time the doors were open. I was in that church like 3 or 4 times a week, sitting in these pews with these old people. And they would always tell these old Bible stories, and every great hero of the Bible had multiple wives. And they never touched on it. It's kind of like skimmed over that portion. I always thought like, why are we not still doing that today? It seemed in my mind,
yeah, you were just naturally attracted to that.
Yeah, this would work now. Why is it? What happened along the way that changed to where we are today? As I went to school a year later in life. I got a degree in pastoral ministry, and I never once found Jesus touch on, you must be monogamous, one man, one woman. It's like Paul.
The Apostle Paul said it, but not Jesus.
But he didn't even. He only said it if you want to be a leader in the church.
Yeah.
And lucky for me, I don't want to lead in the church, so that's fine. But there's nothing as far even though we get horrible comments from Christians on our social media every day.
Yes,
the church ladies got.
They're sending us to find Jesus.
Yeah, we need to go find Jesus. I don't feel like any of them ever read their Bible from cover to cover because
they're reading it, but in the lens of what our monogamous culture is telling them is okay and is not. So
they're more connected to Disney than Jesus at this point. So so anyway, back on track here, but. We fast forward, we're married, and I, even when we got married, like I was 100% sure I wanted to commit to Charlene, and I took my vows very, very seriously, and I knew I wanted to marry her, but it didn't something felt weird about this commitment or whatever. And then we walked down the aisle, and then when we walked back down and we were married, like I felt flush, and my hands started shaking, and they took her off to go take some photo or something, and I went around into the bushes with my buddies, and they handed me a beer, and I drank a beer and I threw up in the bushes. And I was so nervous about this commitment I made, and something just felt so unnatural about it that in my mind, that I had committed to this, and it didn't feel right. Like it felt right to commit to her, but it didn't feel right that was it for the rest of my life. And we were supposed to be everything for each other.
That makes me want to clarify something, that commitment and non-monogamy do not exclude each other.
Yeah.
I think people think that, and they're so against it. And that's why they're demonizing non-monogamy, because it makes them feel unsafe. Like they have no true foundation to relationship and security to love, and because they think that if you're not monogamous, you're just going to naturally sleep around and just whatever.
It's the ticket to freedom.
Yes.
You can have this security over here with this person that you've got the legal contract with, but you can still, you can have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
Correct.
Exactly. So you can be non-monogamous and still be very much into commitment and respect for your partner and relationship.
Mm-hmm. Correct. So my commitment never wavered. Like I was committed from day one, and I've been committed till now. Like nothing there has changed. Shortly after we got married, I just buried myself into work, and I was working like 60 hours a week. So I didn't have time for I barely had time for
out of necessity. He was in the Marine Corps. He was on recruiting. He didn't have a choice. It wasn't like he was intentionally losing himself.
No,
work.
And I was working extra too. I wanted to be really good at my career at the time. I was like, it was that, I wanted to get really good in advancement and stuff like that. Later on, once I left the Marine Corps, and I got a job, I started making a lot more money, and I had all this money, and I had more free time. And that's when I started I have some free time. And I started just trying to find hobbies. I just kept jumping from hobby to hobby to fill this void in my life. And I would spend all this money. I'd get super into this stuff. And I'm not talking about little stuff too. I'm talking about like $100,000 type toys.
Right.
So
and the satisfaction was
and
not
it wasn't there.
The
like you'd build these crazy toys, you know. At the time, I think the last thing I was into was sand cars. You know,
he says toys. We're not talking like little trinkets. We're talking like huge.
We were going out to the sand
cars and off-road vehicles.
We didn't know what toys are.
RVs,
trucks,
toy haulers and trucks.
I was spending shit tons of cash on this stuff, and I would build it, you know, just to perfection. And we'd get out there, and I'd ride around for a while, and then I'd be like, but I still felt like I was missing the thing. It was nothing but scratch the itch of what I was looking for. And then right around that same time, that's when I realized I was polyamorous and I started dating. And as soon as I started dating, all that stuff just started collecting dust. It was just like none of that stuff
anymore.
It was cool, but it didn't matter until I fixed this other piece that was missing. And as soon as I did, then I wanted to go back out there again because now everything changed. It was like, that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just wanted to know if it was hard for you. That's why I was asking. And obviously, you're very busy, and you kept yourself very busy, probably in a subconscious way. So
I don't think that's any different than anybody I see. It's about distraction. And look around and tell me that the men that you see in monogamous relationships that are miserable are not distracted all the time.
Oh yeah, we're all distracted all the time.
And the women,
all of us.
You go shopping to
the men are out golfing,
retail therapy,
all these things, whatever. Just keep your plate full, your schedule packed, and don't ever have to sit in silence and think about who am I, what do I want out of life, and what am I not getting?
What am I missing? What do I wish I had that I am not allowed to have?
That's something that always shocks me because I'm always so introspective, and I look around me sometimes and I see people constantly either on their phones or talking. They go grocery shopping and they just talk on the phone for hours with some girlfriend about nothing. And I see that it's just noise. They're making all this noise in their heads on purpose so they don't have to sit in silence and think and feel what they really feel and what they really think.
Some people have the most ridiculous hobbies. And when you see those, you're like, I watched a documentary on Netflix recently about people that collect Pez dispensers. You're like, there's something for everybody. And when you're doing this, like you are running from something else.
There's some deeper desire that you're ignoring. You're scared to acknowledge.
Yes, probably. Anyways, back to non-monogamy and monogamy from Pez collecting. I was thinking that out of the three of us, again, I'm gonna zoom in on Shar again. You have had, ever since I met you, you have had the biggest transformation that I've seen in a human being in such a short period of time. And I know a lot of it has to do with the fact that you had the freedom to explore yourself and explore your sexuality and explore your romantic ability to get attached and involved with other people.
Yeah.
And I want you, if you find your words and you want to talk about it, like tell our wonderful listeners and us, how did it feel for you to transition from purely monogamous to non-monogamous?
It was it took a lot of introspection. Like you're talking about, like just that being willing to sit in silence and just think the hard thoughts that you want to just ignore, sit with your feelings, your intuition, and really question what you believe and why you believe it. Mm-hmm. For me, like I was thinking, even just as I was mentally preparing for this episode, even just the transition from monogamous to where we are now, there was a lot of mental shifts that I didn't even realize. Like they were kind of, I guess, kind of subconscious. Mm-hmm. But yeah, because I was very satisfied in our monogamous relationship. But it's interesting for me to realize that when Josh brought up that he was polyamorous and what his ideal polyamorous relationship would look like with this additional life partner, that was genuinely appealing from me.
Right.
Like, not
the light
like
bulb.
I didn't have to sit and think on it. Like, would I be okay with this? It was immediately like, I think that from what I can imagine that would be like, that is a beautiful family that I would welcome in my life. And, Josh was talking about, he heard, this Old Testament stories of the men with multiple wives. And I had heard those stories too and questioned why it wasn't still that way. But I just looked around and saw that it's not that way. And I had been taught like, well, that was how it used to be, but that doesn't mean that that's okay. It was still sin then. Like, and then realizing like, well, okay. Like Josh was saying earlier, God never actually said that was sinful. So you see problems in some of those relationships. Some of those men and women did not know how to do relationship, but look around now. You see people, even in the church, that also don't know how to do relationship, even monogamously. Right. So it was just a lot of sitting with all of those thoughts in a non-judgmental way, like not judging myself for thinking things, not judging how others are choosing to live, but just really looking at the facts of how things are, the facts of how I think of things and would be okay and what fulfills me.
Right. What is it that you really want?
Yeah. And then that allowing my perspective on things to change, or I guess more allowing myself to embrace how I'm truly wired, to the point where I realized I am ambiamorous. I was happy with Josh, but I knew in this dynamic, I wouldn't be happy long-term with just having the relationship with Josh and you just being basically a roommate.
So like, you knew this before? Because for me, it was like, I'm asking, like, did you knew this before we all got together, or is something that you discovered while we were together, all of us? Like in our initial V dynamic. I
wondered before.
You wondered.
Yeah.
And
for
then
me,
it was,
And then after we were all together for a while, it became more and more clear to me.
Right.
Like I want.
Yeah. I feel like both of us, we were going probably through the same like thoughts and struggles at the same time, because I didn't know that's what I wanted. But I kept feeling that something was really, really off. And my instincts were telling me that this is what we're supposed to do. And somehow, I don't know why, I just didn't click. It's the same, like I kept doing it over and over again, like I did with the non-monogamy thing, And then when we finally became like a true throuple, then that day, everything just all of a sudden just like clicked. Everything was like, and I made sense of all the things before and all the relationships I've ever had. And I was like, that's what was missing. That was it. And I never knew. And if anybody's just like us, if they hear this, they're not going to have to wonder for 15 years and waste their lives. They can be just like, yes, that's what I want.
I think part of it too was fear, like with not admitting it to myself or to you or even to Josh. I was concerned that if we started with you and I trying to have like more of a romantic relationship or our own relationship that was more than just roommates, friends, whatever. And then that didn't end up working, like, because I can't force it. You can't force that kind of a relationship.
Then it would have been weird.
My concern was that if that didn't pan out, then none of this would work out.
Right.
So I held back, which I don't know, hindsight is not so much 2020 at this point. I don't know if that would have been any better or worse. I only know how it is. So I was holding back early on, and I think it was just fear. And you have the cultural things as well that are like, well, what would people think? Like people accept the sister wives somewhat, but like this is different. And even sister wives, it's very judged.
We would have been weirdos anyway. So well,
yeah. So it was just a matter of coming to terms within myself, being honest with myself, and then being honest with you guys. Like, and it it was kind of scary, like being vulnerable. I didn't know how both of you would respond.
Scary and weird too, because like I've never seen anything like it before.
Yeah.
Like we're creating.
Yeah.
What are we creating? We're creating a new way of living here, and it's scary because I have nobody to look for advice.
Yeah, and we're not the best example for other people either. So
are we not? We're the only example.
we're the only thing you got. We're all you got. We're all you can afford. I was very similar to you, or both of you. In the beginning, I wanted a V. Like in my mind, it's not even what I wanted, just all I thought. Like even when I told you about it, it was always a V.
Yeah.
Because Char was monogamous, and I just didn't, see it turning into like a throuple type situation.
Yeah.
Other than you guys just being good friends. And then I was concerned too, being the polyamorous one in the relationship. Like, what if you guys had become closer? And now I was getting like, what if you stole my wife away from me? Now I've got nothing. Like that was, I guess, the fear. But this, similar to you both, is like after we were together for a while, I started to realize like, no, there's more here, and that's not a valid fear. And I saw that your guys' relationship start to progress. That it was like, okay, yeah, I see where this is going. This all makes sense. It all just kind of started to fall into place.
Yeah, realizing that one relationship existing doesn't take away from the other, or doesn't have to anyways. There probably are some unhealthy ways of doing these relationships where one would take away from the other. But
no.
Yeah, when we're all being so intentional about it.
Right. And love is an infinite resource.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All resources are finite at some extent, but love, I choose to believe it's infinite. The more you have, the more you give, the more you're going to get back. And
correct. And if I'm being honest to the listeners, me and Liv are both very difficult personality types.
What?
Very difficult. So it's nice to have.
Don't tell people that.
He's being honest.
It's nice to have Char around.
Well, yeah.
She's like our referee.
Yes.
Sometimes one or the other will come to me and be like, "Is this just me thinking this?" And I'm like, "Well, it's both of you.
You both are weird." That's what she always says.
Is it just me, or is he this way? Is it just me, or is she this way? Like, well, it's not just you, but also it's not just her or not just him.
Our relationship reminds me of that "I Love You" man. Do you remember that he tries to go over to the buddy's house, like they make him go to the poker game or whatever, and him and the guy, I forget the actor's name.
John Favreau.
Yeah, that's him.
I don't know if I said that right.
Yeah, but he's like, his wife's like, "You do this for me." He's like, "I don't want him at my poker game." He's like, "You do this for me." He's like, "Okay, but you're wearing the cheerleader outfit later."
It's like, fine.
Fine.
I'll wear a cheerleader outfit for you and for you, for the record. Whatever you're into, I'll wear it. I'll wear the horse outfit too.
No.
Oh my God.
Come on, you like it?
No. Stop.
Does that mean no, or it's like...
That means put it in terms you can understand. Nay.
Nay. We're gonna cut this out.
One thing I will say about unwiring hardwired monogamy is it's not something you could just do overnight, and it's not we can't give our listeners like 3 steps to unwire hardwired monogamy. Like this is a lifetime thing. We're still doing it. We're gonna be doing it till the day we're in the grave. Because we were born in a monogamous society. Mm-hmm. Everything around us is designed for monogamy.
And we still live in a monogamous society.
Yeah. And we're constantly, every day, I'm still thinking like, wait a minute, you have to rethink everything all the time. Even for somebody like me that wasn't, born monogamous. Like my brain thinks poly, but I've adapted. And now I have to unadapt and unlearn. It's like I'm speaking of, I had to learn a foreign language, and now I have to go back to my mother tongue. And it's like, it's very confusing. Not everything translates
But
over.
even that, when you go back to your mother tongue, as you call it, you only do it when it suits you and when it's comfortable, because in certain scenarios and situations, you're not going to tell people who you are and what your relationship structure is like.
It depends, because like you've said even before, like you admire how often, like I always tell everybody about my relationship structure.
But would you say it in a job interview for a very, very, very important, prestigious job.
Well, that wouldn't make sense because I'm not going to come out and talk about my relationships. Like, even if I was monogamous, I'm not going to tell them about my wife and my children at a job interview because it's not something when you're being hired, you're supposed to be talking or asking about. So, no, because that would be me flaunting in somebody's face.
That's true.
When it would come up naturally, like any other monogamous situation,
So
I bring up
you
my
would.
partners instead of I don't hide behind the fact
Okay,
I have
that's
multiple
something
partners.
we talked about this in previous episodes where we finally have segues to previous episodes because we had enough of them where I was put in that situation and I did not take the high road. I was like, no, oh, well, whatever. I panicked and
You took the easier detour. Like,
he's a man. He's one guy. That's it.
yeah.
End of story. Let's not talk about this anymore.
Yes.
I don't do that. I don't flaunt and I don't hide. I want it normalized. So for me, it's just very normal. It's just like these are
I do want
are
to
my partners.
normalize too.
So and what's surprising is that almost 99% of the time, no one bats an eye. Really, like when I've talked to my chiropractor, he's like, oh, he actually brought up the other day. I was at my chiropractor appointment. He's like, and he was asking how I was doing. I was like, yeah, my back's feeling really great. I'm walking up a lot, more upright. And he's like, yeah, you were saying, was it your wife or your girlfriend? Which one of them said? Like he remembered, it's like, and that's all he said. That's the end of it. It's like in my doctor and like when you have conversations throughout the day where it comes up where they ask you, are you married? Like, well, I have 2 partners, and you bring it up and they're like, oh, okay. I have several patients like that. That's the end of the conversation. It's not as rare as we think it is. It only feels rare because there's nobody like us getting on a microphone, going on camera, going, hey, do you need help? We're here to help. We don't have all the answers,
Right.
but we're here to give you what we know because we couldn't find this and it's been a struggle and we've had to learn as we go. So,
Yeah. If the status quo is not working for you, then it's time to question the status quo, not question if there's something wrong with you. And I think we kind of touched on it earlier, but kind of is monogamy or non-monogamy a choice or identity, or is it not? And I think it's kind of one of those, it depends, and it's both. Because you do choose whether or not you're going to act on those non-monogamous inclinations. But that doesn't mean that by choosing to not act on it, that you're not naturally wired that way. And you can choose to identify as being polyamorous and embrace that, or you can choose to identify as, no, I'm married and I'm monogamous, and that's who I am.
if you like being monogamous and monogamy's for you, I would not try to push you into anything else. But if it's not working, stop trying to put yourself in a box you don't fit in. Try something else.
Right.
Yeah.
And if monogamy is just your idea of being safe within the relationship, then you're into monogamy for the wrong reasons. Because I think that's the main problem here.
I think people
monogamy
need to-
gives you security.
Yeah, and people need to stop caring what everybody thinks.
That too.
Yeah,
I think
stop trying to be Karen. Stop trying to be Chad. Just stop trying to fit in and
Be yourself.
Be yourself. Be true to yourself.
Yeah. And you said monogamy gives you security. I think that's somewhat true, because I think a lot of us still have insecurities within monogamy, but the opposite is absolutely true, where non-monogamy heightens those insecurities. So if you're already struggling with any type of security issues in a monogamous relationship, then even thinking about going down a non-monogamous path is gonna
It's terrifying.
I've experienced and talked to so many people who even just thinking about that, literally have panic attacks. And I'm hearing this from people who are like, I don't have mental health issues. I've never had panic attacks in my life. But my partner just saying he's poly and then talking about possibly dating somebody else or telling me he's talking to somebody
but
else,
that's security,
I'm having
right?
panic attacks now. Exactly. So that is, it's definitely
it
security related.
takes away everything that you thought you had within that relationship, the security, the safety, the commitment. It's all out the window, and now you have to start from scratch and be the best version of yourself. You cannot be complacent.
The thing about monogamy, though, is it's a false sense of security.
It is
your relationship.
It's
Relationship's not
misplaced.
better. When you get into non-monogamy, you literally have to pull the dragon out and slay it, and you have to get rid of those insecurities for it to thrive. But you still have them now in your monogamous relationship. Your Shar talked about it before when she was monogamous, and then I started dating, and she had these insecurities. But then eventually she realized that I actually liked her for her, and not because of a contract that we had with each other on paper.
Yeah.
And
Not something you signed for the person that I was 15 years before we'd had kids and changed into who we are now. You still wanted to be with me.
I'm choosing to be with her today, not 15 years ago. To every day, I'm still choosing to be with her out of my choice, not out of a piece of paper that we signed a long time ago.
Yeah.
So that's true security.
Yes.
And I think people need to stop having this false sense of security. It's like the people that say they'd rather work for a company than work for themselves because they want the security of this company. That company could fire you. It could go under. It could be sold. You don't know how close they are to not making payroll every week, because you don't see the numbers.
Yeah. It might not be as secure as you think it is.
Yeah. So that's a false sense of security.
So it all comes down to who you really are as an individual. Are you the person that chooses to be comfortable and take the easy way? Or are you the person that wants to know who they really are to the core and push themselves to be better and better and better? Because if you're that person that wants to find out who you really are, what's your true calling in life, and who you are meant to be for yourself and the people around you, then non-monogamy is the way for you.
Yes.
It's hard, and there may be times on the path, in the journey, where you're like, what was I thinking? Why am I doing this? This is hell, and I'm going to fail, and I'm failing, and this is horrible. And at the end of this, you're going to come up stronger, better, more secure, more fulfilled, finding your true purpose, and just like being as close as you can to happiness.
Yes.
It's hard.
It is. It's difficult, but it's worth it.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
If our listeners have any questions for us, we're a few episodes in now, and we'd like to hear from our listeners. So what do you guys want to hear from us?
Yeah.
And also, if you have any positive comments, encouragements that you want to send to us over all the bad comments and church lady bullshit we get every day,
We'd love to hear
we'd love to hear.
Comment to yourselves.
If you're enjoying these podcasts, let us know. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
And our email is throupletalk@gmail.com.
Yes, it is. Goodbye. So monogamy is a very, 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 very important subject in our lives, just because we don't necessarily observe it in our everyday life. Okay, I got to start that again.
Really that important?
Like, where's she going with
I
this?
know what
We don't necessarily observe it.
you know how it is. I'll tell you how it is.